kids. And so they sit with the kids, they're with the kids. I will tell you, our first 2 weeks of school, there is no curriculum at all. And sometimes it's 3 weeks. It is all planning what the expectations are. They have the chance within the first week to create their own norms for what our learning spaces look like. So for example, we use language like seminar, group flex, personal flex, and all these have meaning to kids and how they learn. So they develop what those expectations are. We also work on growth mindset. We work on helping them understand what an agile thinker is like, and these are 11, 12-year-olds when they're in 6th grade. So here's the 6th grade group. What Angie and Joe, that's the 2 teachers you can see here, and there's 3 more that you can't see in this picture. But what they're doing is, they're looking at the wall, because I don't have the greatest building in the world, but we make do with what we have. And what the kids see is this. You have the teachers that are creating these offerings, and I'll be honest, they created the day before. Because to keep track of where kids need something, because we tell the kids, you are trying to find what's best for your learning the next day. So for example, Angie, Mrs. Plain, she's science. She is just doing kind of an environmental unit with the kids, and our kids, even though we're landlocked in South Dakota, we do a lot of plastic pollution work. To the point where, matter of fact, we go to this little island on the coast of Honduras called Utila, and we work with the people there and help them understand, because they get so much trash from Belize that comes down, and it's really been a great experience. But you can see what her offerings are, and she's doing something on straws, and so she's got 2 offerings, they're differentiated. She also has an offering that's Stack Attack, so eventually, this is like about 6 months into the year, and our kids start leading offerings. So Zach is one of our kids. He's an expert in this type of turtle you can see here. And then, could my straw make it to the gyre? You know what the gyre is in the Pacific Ocean? It's the swirling pool of plastic. It's just, and that's where all the currents converge. So anyway, they're talking about that. As you go across, there's ELA, there's social studies, and then there's math. With the math, we do a lot of collaboration. We collaborate with a school in Norway. And what's great about what we can do for kids, I think, is now, for example, if Chris, he doesn't have to, I need fractions yet, I'm struggling. He doesn't. We can now create offerings where kids can be in places where they need it. And I can't even describe to you, Mr. Donnelly, my math teacher, who's extremely humble. He can have 20 kids walk into his room, and he's created digital content for them where there could be 6 different groups in that 20 kids. And he can fire out that content to them through flipped instruction. But anyway, going through, these are all the offerings. So the kids see these, and then what they do, they process the puzzle that they need. With our software that we use though, for example, I can take Kevin and I can lock him into a class. So your first thought is, well, sure, I mean, kids are just gonna sign up for social studies all day long. They're not allowed to do that in the program. But at the same sense, Kevin can go through and he can say, you know what, I need these 5 kids in a coaching workshop, and they lock them in. So for example, if I would go through, you can see here, what Allie did is she had her group of kids, when they open up their iPad, they have no choice during that block of time. That's when they have to go. Here's another example, and here's what's nice is, I start my day at our building, we have a bell to start the day. After that, we have no more bells. Because this last year, we had about 5 different schedules going on at the same time. Because as a group of teachers, you are responsible for taking your block of time and you divide it up how you think is best. So if you have 4 hours worth, you divide up that time based on what you need. But there could be cases, and this happened a lot. If you notice Angie and Joe here, what they did is they created a larger offering and they collaborated together. So breaking the silos down of teachers in your hallway. And they were able to work together on their timeline, the age of the earth, because it really fused well with their content. As you go through, you're probably wondering, you have things like this right here. Those dashes means that within that classroom, it's kind of like elementary, there are 2 offerings going on. There is a flex, which is, we call it personal flex, and that means the kids and this is training kids in the first 2 weeks here, that they are on their own working on something with help from the teacher if they need it. But then at the same time, you can see there's the pyramids, so the pyramids of Egypt. There's a writing project, there are 2 before me, and there's a group of kids and they're doing the same thing. So after they see this, they look and they figure out, what does my puzzle look like? Oh, sorry, that's from something else here. They look at the puzzle, and then they open up their iPad, and like this past year, we had, let me go out of this so I can kind of show you a better version. So this was in our library. This is 110 sixth graders, and they start the day in the library. And this is where we do attendance, etc. You can see what it looked like for this cohort of teachers. There's a simple slide, and it talks about the pieces that they have, but I found out which was really fun. Teachers started competing with each other with gifts, with emojis, and they really made it a lot of fun for the kids to watch. And then you competed with each other. So I would compete with you if you were on my cohort, just with my pitch and how I offer these classes to kids. And so you can see right here, you have Andrea and Jimmy, and it's kind of casual. And at the same time, we do social emotional learning. We use the habits of mind. So we talk with the kids, we do lessons on persistence, metacognition, and kids actually use this language like finding humor. As a number of times our kids come up and they'll look at a teacher and they'll say, Mr. Youth, you need to find humor in this experience today. But the kids will look at this, they'll open up their iPad. From that point, within about 30 seconds, we can have 110 kids scheduled, iPads closed, and out the door going to their classes for the day. So again, a recap, when kids come to our school, they do not know their schedule. We want to meet kids where they're at, kind of like what Dr. Wilder talked about. We want them to have ownership in what they're doing and their learning. So these are 11, 12-year-olds right here. They're watching, they're looking at what the offerings are. Teachers are pitching their offering. Kids open up their iPad and they schedule their offerings for the day.
For the day, not for the week.
For the day.
Every
Yes.
day this happens.
Yes, every day. We could do it for the week because the software could let us do it. And yeah, please, this is very informal. At some point, just like stop and say, wait. I have a question. So after this is done, then kids close their iPad, they're out the door to their first offering. From that point, they manage themselves as well as they can with getting from class to class on time, but they're moving with their peers typically within that cohort. So this is something we really focus on, and this is like input from kids as well. And to think that these kids are doing something you probably do when you're in college and you have more control of what your schedule looks like. We had local university for us, SDSU, not the one in California, but it's the one in South Dakota. They've been doing a longitudinal study on our kids when it comes to, if you use the phrase soft skills, but looking at agile thinkers, looking at flexibility, how the kids think, and they've really had some great results in that research. I can tell you, for example, I'm trying to think, I think this is Lisa right here. Let's say Lisa's going through and her schedule is not working out for her because there's puzzle pieces or she's locked in. I call this negotiating. The kids understand that they can come up, like if it's Pedro, I can come up to Pedro and I can say, hey, I cannot get into your offering today, but I really need to get into this class, because we set limits so we can cap the number of kids in an offering. And then Pedro will look at it and go, oh, okay, I just put you in there. So they can overload classes too if they need. But it's so much fun, I call it the dance. Kids coming up to their teacher and saying, I need this. Can you get me in your class? And I love it when they take that responsibility to do it. Yes?
So each teacher has X number of spots. Like, I'm just wondering about the management of it. So like, it's basically like whoever can get the baskets in there gets the...
Yes.
Okay. And is it ever, like, I just picture like Jimmy being locked in by everybody and never having any choice. Does that ever happen?
Yes, it does. And actually some kids will come to us and say, I can't do this. I cannot do it. And so we'll create the schedule for them. But
So like the anxiety of choosing
Yes.
every day is too much for them, and you'll be like, don't worry, buddy, we got you, and then you'll help them schedule it.
Yeah, and we do take it away from kids once in a while. So if you're struggling and you're signing up with Kevin all the time, and there's some issues going on,
There would be, yeah.
yeah, we have conversations. We have I say conversation before consequence is one of my big phrases. So it's a conversation with the kids. They develop like what are the 3 or 4 things they could do, and then we ask them what are you going to do, and if they can't follow through with it, then we take it away for a period of time.
And you talked about like training them on habits and like the vocabulary that they use. Do you say like, you need to not always go to this teacher, you have to have a balance of all the subjects, there's any expectation?
Well, they have to go to every subject.
Okay, they have to go
Every
to
day,
every
yes.
subject.
The software won't let them just go to math twice and social studies twice in one ELA.
So that was another one of my questions. I'm sorry that I have so many.
Go for it.
I find this really interesting, but what is the software? You keep saying the software.
It's one we've kind of helped create and we kind of own.
Okay.
So it's personalizedtools.com, I believe is what it's called.
And they divide on how many offers
Periods.
or periods? How many
Yes, and
teachers
that's-
are there?
And that's really, let me see if I can find something that's a little clearer on that. Maybe I just go back to this. You know, in this case, we had 4 facilitators or teachers. Typically, we have 5. And so they just know, if you look on the side here, it says time, but since our schedule can be so different from day to day, they just go by A, B, C, D, and E blocks. So they just know they have this chunk of time, and they divide it up how they think is best for kids. Sometimes it's 40 minutes, sometimes it's 30, sometimes it could be an hour, and you're collaborating with another teacher, and that offering actually has 50 slots, because you have 2 teachers working with a larger group of kids. And they're just, we call it cross-pollinating their content. Jordan.
Accurate is how many students your school serves with high support needs, and that works with scheduling for servicing and supporting students.
Yes, everyone is in this program. Except we have a behavior program, and those typically, sometimes they're in, but they have to earn that right. But we have a lot of high needs kids. We had one little boy who was deaf, and he was in this program, and it really was phenomenal to see him, because he was actually one of our kids that helped with the social emotional learning piece too, especially with the empathy. Kelly.
Darren, I apologize, I'm a little slow. So, I'm one of your teachers. In the morning I go in and I pitch my diff for the day. I'm gonna get kids. I'm not gonna get 0 kids, right?
Right.
Even if my pitch is really bad.
You're gonna have all those 110 that were on that picture.
Okay, and then, so everybody's gonna get to me at some point?
Yes.
During that day? So really, students are kind of picking their priority. Is that a way to say it or not?
Sometimes, because it's differentiated. Like, for example, I maybe have done this already, so I have a chance that I can go into, I've probably done the intro, I can go to my mastery. Our mastery, we don't have formal grades, it's standards-based grading. So we call them mastery artifacts or projects. That's really where our iPads come in and with our kids having choice. So you might sign up for that instead,
Okay.
because you're ready for it, you're to that place. So really, we're trying to meet kids in all different places in their journey of learning, is the goal.
And is this a lot of prep for teachers outside the classroom?
You know, the teachers that come in, if you're a veteran teacher, like 15 or plus years, you're gonna come in and you're gonna feel like you're a brand new teacher for a period of time. Because it's a different mindset on what you have to do. Now, for example, Klumper, he actually left for Norway, his wife was from there, he was phenomenal. He used to create Snapchat filters on pages, and this was like 7 years ago. And then the kids were able to do these projects. But anyway, you know, for someone like Joe, he's got his plan for the week, but he knows that plan is in flux depending on what kids need. And a lot of times we have a teaming model, so our teachers have a planning period and a team period. So these 4 get to meet every day together, but they have certain things that they have to do, but they get to meet also.
And this happens for every grade level?
Yes.
You have these happening for the 6th graders, the 5th graders, and so on?
Yeah, so last year we had 6 cohorts because we were close to 700 kids. Next year it's going to be a little different because instead of 120 kids in a cohort, we have like 150 because we're kind of in a tweener period. So I don't know how that's going to look, but my teachers and myself in a couple weeks we're going to figure out exactly what method we're going to use. In the back.
So I can see these are like English, math, social studies. What happens to like specials, like music and phys ed and all of that?
Yes, music, electives, etc. are in there, but we call those rocks.
Okay.
So those are set in the schedule. So when the kids open up their iPad, those things are already in there for them. It's these core content that they can do. Now, if I had my choice to experiment with it, I would love for like music to be like music flowing in and out of these content areas. Or our art teacher does it already, she just does it by herself. But you know, they'll do terracotta projects. You know, when we talk about the Chinese civilizations, that's the way I would love to do it. Where kids go to those people to complete their projects, whether it's with the iPad or not.
Can I ask a question about assessment?
Yes.
So the only assessments that you do would be like project-based assessment?
Sometimes, yes. Math is still pretty, I mean, you gotta know math or you don't. So those are still fairly traditional, but it's still digital.
So everybody has to sign up for the test on test day?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to take your mastery assessment, yes.
So what if everyone, oh, well, you have it locked based on how many, I see what you're saying.
Yes.
Because I could see kids being like, I just want to get the math test out of the way, everyone wants to take the first period, but they can't, because only X number of kids.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the back end of it, there's so much I can't tell you because it would take too long. And this has nothing to do with Apple. We wanted kids to have ownership in the language, so we call, the first step in learning is called I learn, then it goes I practice, and then I master. And, you know, and then after that, the iPads take over. I mean, just doing the stop motion, and actually some of these videos are from like pre-COVID. COVID really messed up, like we had to be very static. Kids couldn't schedule themselves as easily because we had to contact trace, etc. So now we're just getting kind of everything back. But this is really where the iPad came in, and kids have a menu of items to choose from. And then kids would come to us too, like one girl came and said, I want to use jelly beans for my mastery. I go, okay, what are you gonna do? She goes, well, I want to get a ladder from the custodian, and I want to be able to do stop motion with jelly beans and show pictures with the different colored jelly beans. And as long as she met the criteria, we have our assessment is called success criteria. The kids have it, and they have to meet that depending on just what level of assessment that they want. So it's wide open for them to do that. You know, there's the using pages and creating filters with making it look like Snapchat for the kids. We build our own furniture, like there's a high-top whiteboard there, using GarageBand. I mean, all the things that you probably are familiar with. This is also this is messy lyrics, but this is the lyrics to their song regarding the different forms of government. And then they created their beat in GarageBand and recorded with the other iPad. This is a more recent one. So Keynote, using kind of the stop motion piece that you can do within it. And our social studies and science are really good about taking the ELA concepts and putting it into there, the themes. And so you can see what Stephanie Garcia has created with one of her friends with the Peloponnesian War, creating books. And this was dealing with pollution in the oceans, but doing this in pages. And illustrations are theirs. Augmented reality. This is with AR Maker. I know iJack has been talked about a little bit, but this is the water cycle. And this is where we had Chromebooks at one time, and I know I'm preaching to the choir. Chromebooks were a joke because of how easily they break and just that flexibility and ease for the creativity. So anyway, I thought it was really nice to hear Dr. Wilder talk about some of the key concepts for her work, because we just forget about the kids a lot, and that's really the focus of our school. The first focus is kids. It's the relationship, but it's then letting them take control of how they want to learn as long as they're meeting that criteria that we need for assessment. What other questions do you have? I didn't want this to just be a presentation, so.
What was the website that you said that you use again,
Personalizedlearningtools.com.
They created it for your own needs.
Yeah, we
The
bought
company?
a small chunk of it, and then after that, we just had one guy, and he just kept, we said, we need this, we need this, we need this, and now after 7 years, we have just a solid one. Like even like during our, we call them directed studies, but like your study hall, our kids sign up for who they want to go to for study hall based on what they need. Like if I need help with math, I'm going to Kevin and I sign up for them.
Tell me, like the time of your day, like when the kids show up.
The morning bell, 8:05, and then 3:04 is the final bell.
And then how long does that library time take, the scheduling piece?
Oh, good question. So when you saw the kids that were in there, so for example, pretend this is the library, this takes about 15 minutes. And this is after training. I mean, that's why, and if you think, well, you're losing 2 to 3 weeks of curriculum, for some reason it's like magic. When November hits, all of a sudden we start gaining, we just start going like light speed with things, and we gain that time back because the kids understand all of the cohort teachers are on the same page, so they don't have to guess what expectations are. And then when we come back from Christmas break, we do a reboot, and that only takes like 2 days.
And the teachers think about their curriculum, they have to think about it big picture and little picture,
Yes.
right? So it's not just like, I'm gonna say what I'm gonna pitch tomorrow. It's just, I have this big concept and then I'm like, what's the nuance of that I need for tomorrow? Is that inaccurate?
Exactly. Yep, there is a map that's there for them. And then after that, I always tell my teachers, I want you to enjoy what you do. I'm not gonna, because some districts I know it's like 6th grade math has to be taught at this time in every building, throughout the year. And I give more flexibility to my teachers to get through, and a lot of it is just bigger concepts, making sure kids understand.
Can we come visit?
That was my question. I wanna go.
Yeah, we had a lot of visitors right before COVID, probably about 200, 2 years before COVID. So we're just starting to open up again, but I do this just for the sake of, as you can tell, I'm getting gray hairs, and I'm more thinking legacy, and I just want people to understand there's a different way to do education. And this is one way, but I always tell the schools when they come in, this is how we do it. How you're going to do it might look different, and it should.
And how does this first weeks look like?
The first couple weeks we call
when
it.
you're training and.
Yeah, we call it I Train, and every facilitator has like a role that they play with the kids, and we basically cycle them through different like stages or different areas, and that's where they learn about the learning spaces. That's where they learn about how do I schedule, because we don't let them schedule like that right away, but they all have just a generic schedule so they can see it, and then after about 4 weeks, then they start going. They give them pieces. Kelly.
Darren, forgive me if this was asked, I was tweeting out your awesomeness. So, anytime we try something different like this, one of our biggest obstacles is the community of parents.
Yep.
So new to them. I'm curious on what challenges you face with that, and bless you. And is there any like support, any types of support that you would recommend to us if we were going to try to start something like
Yeah, I'll
this?
start with your last question. Professional development. Convincing your board and superintendent, you need a good 10 days in the summer to really get people up to speed on what this can look like. Our people don't get that anymore, but I have enough capacity built where we can get by with it. And your first question, you got parents. We started communicating with parents the January before we did this, and they had hints that something was coming too. And it was by choice. So this group here is our smallest group. It was about 60, 65 kids. And then we also had a traditional track. And then over time, this group grew to the point where we couldn't offer any more traditional classes because they were so imbalanced that we just went all personalized. But with the first group of parents that we had, I held a lot of parent meetings, and I had to really help them understand. And I had one dad look at me, and this was like 2 weeks before school when they got to see the learning spaces, we call them studios. He looked at me, it was Mackenzie's dad, I remember this, big guy too. And he goes, so you're telling me you want my child to be a test monkey for what you're gonna be doing? And I said, yes, you signed her up for it. And we're gonna do the best that we can together with your child. And then after that, what we did is we did live look-ins. So then after, I think it was 2 months, 2.5 months, we sent out like Sign Up Genius. And then parents, they could come in live and see it. We call it See It Live. And then we met with the parents afterwards and asked if they had questions, and then the kids were interviewed at the same time. And that's what, when we have people come and visit, I have a learner panel of kids, about 6 to 8 of them. I don't prep them with anything. I just say, these people are gonna ask you questions, be honest, because every bit of feedback for me is good, whether it's positive or negative on what the program is and how they communicate. Like I had one young lady from Liberia that was just in the States for like 3 or 4 years. Lisa just rocked it on how she communicated everything, and that's the fun part, is when kids can communicate their learning.
We do something similar, but it's just for math at my school. We call it flex learning. So the kids can choose which teacher they want to go to. We all teach the same lesson, but they choose which teacher they want to go to figure out, they have a teacher that they learn best from because we present the information differently. And our test scores like skyrocketed, our entry level testing, because we gave them choice.
What grade level?
5th grade.
Okay, yeah, our elementaries are kind of gradeless. And if you ever see Travis Leakey's from my district, you can talk to him about that.
Gradeless?
Gradeless.
Like no grades?
Yeah, grades 2 through 5, they just have a cohort of teachers, and so like when you do math, if you're a 2nd grader, if you can handle the concepts, or if you're ready for concepts in 4th grade,
Sure.
you're in that concept, you're not really in a grade. So we have some kids that really are moving pretty good.
How many students do you have in your school?
My middle school,
I don't know, whatever, like.
yeah, last year we had almost 700.
And how many students do this?
All of them.
All of them do this?
Yes. All of them do it now. My middle school switched, was right before COVID, and we asked the board if we could just be all personalized, and 3-2 vote, we got it. Yes.
It is a lot of work on the teacher side. We meet every day.
Yes. Sometimes it's during your planning, sometimes it's like in the morning right before it starts, because you have kids in multiple places. Any other questions? Yeah, again, the only reason I wanted to do the conference was because there's so many different ways to do school now, similar to what you saw in the showcase today. And I think I just want more and more people to understand, let kids control the process of their learning is the main point. That's the key. I have a digital card, so if you want to scan it, and if you have questions beyond that, seriously text or call at any point, or WhatsApp, whichever.
So that's the other